Okay, I've already added the Maris Otter pale malt. Maris Otter is a malt very common in English styles, very flavorful. It's a base malt. This means that it has a lot of diastatic power, which is just a fancy word for it. It has a lot of enzymes that are capable of converting starch to sugar. Right, but this is not all the grain. I'm going to show you some of the others. We've got some torrefied wheat. Okay, this is going to add some protein, head retention, some of the features of the beer that we're after. Okay. This is crystal malt. Okay. Crystal malt is malt that has undergone a heating process that converts those sugars, or converts those starches into grain or into sugar, and then the sugars crystallize. So it literally is a crystallized malt. It's actually very tasty. This is a dark crystallized malt, and this is going to contribute some of that dark color that we're after in the beer, and it's going to contribute some of the signature kind of roasty, toasty flavors, some caramel. Okay. And then the final one is chocolate malt, which is very well named. It can definitely add chocolate-like flavors to the beer, very common in things like porters and stouts. And we're adding just a little bit for color and a little bit of flavor. Okay. We're done with those for the moment. So there's our grain. There's all of our grain. There's not a whole lot in this recipe. It's a very low gravity beer. We do have the turbinado sugar that's going to go in with the boil, but we don't need to mash with that. Okay. So our strike water, I actually didn't have quite enough water in there either. So our strike water is coming up to temperature, and I'm going to go mix this grain in the mash tun and then get the strike water to temperature, and then we'll move on from there. Well, I've added the strike water to the malt, and now I just need to stir it a bit. And then as soon as I get it stirred in, I need to check its temperature, because temperature is crucial in the mashing process. You need to maintain a temperature somewhere between about 148 and 155. Now, the temperature that you use for mashing is going to have an effect on the beer. Lower mash temperatures make a beer more fermentable. It results in much simpler sugars. And that's good if you want as much of the sugar to ferment out as possible, like you would in, say, a Pilsner. A higher mash temperature leaves a lot more residual sugar in the mash, more complex sugars that the yeast won't be able to handle. And so this results in a slightly sweeter beer at the end of the day. Okay, so everything is mixed up together pretty well. Basically, you're making like an oatmeal with barley and wheat and whatever grain you have. It smells amazing. This is just a magnificent smell. You get all the smells of the different malts. I could just eat this stuff, and I have before. So now we need to check its temperature. Okay, keep everything clean. So I've got a probe thermometer here. A little difficult to do this stuff with one hand, but oh well, I'll try. Alright, so we'll put the probe thermometer in, get the mash's temperature. We want it to be somewhere around 149. If it's not warm enough, I've given room to add some hot water. See, it's coming up. We're up to 136, 140, 142. I think we're going to be good. Okay, we are definitely good. If it goes up a little bit, that's fine. Okay, I think we're good to go. Now, we let this sit for an hour. That's about how long it takes to convert all of the starches to sugar. Notice, this came out pretty close. I'm at 151. That temperature will drop because this isn't a perfect cooler. And even mashing at 151 is going to be okay. But I used a very specific calculation to figure out how much water I need to add to the grain and what the temperature of that water needs to be. I used 1.25 quarts of water per pound of grain, and then I used a calculator, and there's a formula to it, but I used a calculator to determine what the temperature needed to be for the strike water, and that was 164. And When the grain hit the cooler and when the water hit the cooler and the grain, it brought the temperature down right to where we need it, and I'm happy with 151. So now we've got the weight. I'm just going to set a timer and check on it from time to time, and we are mashing. We are now converting starches to sugars.